Oh, cool. All right, hold on. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
How we doing?
I don't know. We're
I
here.
just texted your niece for your cell phone.
You texted my
Just
niece?
because I was, yeah, Janice,
Hello.
because I was wondering what happened. Hi, Nicole.
Well, I was in it. I've been in since 7:01, but then I had someone who said I didn't get the Zoom URL. I don't know why you didn't get it, but anyway, so.
Okay.
I
Well,
think
that's fine.
actually-
Hi, I see the call.
That's my niece.
Why
texted
can't
me.
my video start? All right. Hi, Ken.
Hi.
And Ken Folan. Hi.
Hello.
Or Christina, whoever's on.
Hi, Ken. Just eating dinner.
What?
I'm just eating dinner.
Oh.
Good. How are the kids? Not kids, but how are
Yeah.
your offspring?
Well, thank
See,
goodness.
who is the person doing this meeting? Like, who should I make the host?
Matthew Kavanaugh.
Oh,
He is the expert.
all right, Matthew, I know you're eating. Stop, Emmy. Making you the host. You are the host, Matthew, so you can go ahead and mute anybody or do whatever you want.
I dragged my husband. He's here.
How you doing, everyone?
Hi, husband.
It's George.
Hi, Lynn. Hi, Cheryl. Nice to see you. Look, we got a whole bunch of people. Woohoo!
This is my husband's favorite topic, so that's why he's here.
Yeah,
Well, your husband-
vehicle.
Is he gonna get an electric car?
I've been looking into BMW. It's a little electric car.
Doesn't matter. I mean,
So
I'm using the computer.
I'm interested in an electric vehicle.
Cool.
So it
Cool.
doesn't matter. If you want
That's
to
great.
talk to me, it's okay.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're gonna start this
Why don't we
meeting.
talk
You
on
all
our
have survived quite well during the storm.
And I have a
I'd like
continue.
someone come and give me a
And then in
hand.
between, I can go
Figure
back to
myself
Marty,
out.
Marty and Anthony.
Matthew's gonna go ahead. This is called the Parsippany Green Team Electric Cars. Matthew's gonna go ahead and mute everyone. At the bottom, you can see we have a chat box. Matthew, do you want them to put their question in the chat box, or would you rather have them wait and ask you afterwards?
Chat box is fine. Yeah,
Okay, great.
I just might not be looking at it, so anybody can sort of raise their hand and say there's a question.
Okay, great. All right. So it's all yours, sir. Take it
All
away.
right, can you see my screen? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so thank you for joining, everybody. What we're going to go over this is part of our library series, our education series for the Parsippany Green Team. So Parsippany Green Team is a municipally sponsored and municipally ran citizen municipal team. And our mission is to collaborate with our residents, town government, and businesses to identify and implement programs that improve the quality of life and the physical, environmental, and financial stability of our community. So Sustainable Jersey is a program there's about 400 plus communities, towns in Parsippany that are in some form of certification under the Sustainable Jersey umbrella. And the Parsippany Green Team was formed to get certified in that program and follow the program's actions. And one of them is a community outreach. So we've started this library series, and this is the event number 4. on electric vehicles. So this is what we're going to be discussing today. So I have the agenda here. I'm going to discuss the Parsippany Green team, just give you a brief overview of what it's about and what we do. Get into the history of the electric car, show some pictures of then and now, and you'll be pretty surprised about what they used to look like. Talk about the importance of electric vehicles, the types and components, the batteries finally, and then the chargers. And at the end, I want to show you how important Parsippany is in this EV revolution. And oh, we should record this, right?
It is recording.
It is recording, okay. And just talk about the location and the range and some of the important factors that come along with EVs. So at a very high level, Sustainable Jersey, as I mentioned, is a program with 400 plus towns. It's a points-based structure with 150 actions across sustainable categories. And these are the points goals. You can get bronze, gold, or silver, bronze, silver, or gold. This year, we're after silver certification, which requires 150 points. Next year, we were after silver certification, 350 points. And then in 2023, we would like to accomplish what's called gold certification in energy, which is the highest credential they have. And the key metric there is about carbon reduction and implementing sustainable solutions in your energy infrastructure across the community, across the municipality. So this is at a very high level what we're up to. Within the program, there are 18 Sustainable Jersey categories across any number of things that you can think of: brownfields, arts, green design, health and wellness, local economies, waste, water, energy, emergency response, resiliency. So, when we talk about this series, and one of the reasons for it is to spread the word and get people to get involved in the movement here, because there's something for everybody. And if your interest is in food or your interest is in animals, there's plenty of things to get done in the context of this program. And then additionally, if there isn't something specifically in action in Sustainable Jersey, innovative community projects, that light blue one there, you can actually create one or just do it in the context of the team. So if there's an idea out there, if there's a team, if there's someone who has a passion for something, there's a place for you on this team, and there's a place for you in the program. And let's go get the points. So any volunteers that want to join, they're highly encouraged, and we'd like you to spread the word. So the library series here, today's February 2nd, so we're doing electric vehicles. Previously, we did the renewable energy aggregation, and we also did the ground source heat pumps. Now we're doing electric vehicles. I need to schedule the solar energy, but that's going to come the week of the 15th. And then we have a couple more scheduled on renewable energy aggregation in the future. You can go to the Parsippany website and go to the main library calendar and click on the events and register, as you all have. But it is fairly simple to do this. And if you all can kind of share the word on Facebook or your posts, or, we'd like to grow the participation over time in this format, and not only to just share concepts and things that we're doing, but also educate the community and engage with the community more, so we have a more sustainable community. So that being said, that's the green team, and I wanted to go through a brief history of vehicles, really, and electric vehicles. So interestingly enough, the first cars in the United States, electric vehicles, was winning back in the 1800s and early 1900s. There was more electric power cars in the country than there were internal combustion engines. So it wasn't really until Ford invented the Model T that electric vehicles started to predominantly phase out because of inexpensive gas and oil. And basically, it wasn't really until recently that this started to come back. But you can track it all the way back to 1832. A guy named Robert Anderson in Scotland, he said, build his first prototype electric powered carriage. I don't have a picture of that on here, but you can research it, and it looks pretty funny. And then basically, throughout time, new inventions were made, but then oil started to take over in the early 1900s and predominantly, dominated the rest of the century in the 2000s. So The problem with that is that oil has been historically very, very volatile. And there's been a lot of global events that have affected pricing, availability, and a whole slew of events that have come with that. And it was some of these oil-related events in the world that has driven us back to EVs, in addition to storage and battery technology and reducing costs. So the innovation curve and the oil prices have passed the threshold where the economics of electric vehicles has come to fruition, and we're going to see this technology really expand into the future. So that being said, very interesting, but now in this day and age, in the 2020s, you're going to see all makes and brands of electric vehicles. So this was the city car on the left here, this yellow sort of like Back to the Future type car. I don't know the range on that, but it looks pretty unsafe and looks like it wasn't going to go very far. And this was lead acid battery car, so the range was very limited. The batteries were very heavy, but you kind of get a concept of what it looked like. And now you have all kinds of sleek new designs. Almost all major car manufacturings have some electric vehicle, and they have a roadmap to offer more and more brands. And additionally, states like California are actually banning new sales of internal combustion engines by 2030. And why is that important? Because they're basically taking the market where it needs to go by moving everything to electric vehicles. But you can just do some research. There's plenty of options now. They're starting to make pickup trucks and commercial semi trucks, box trucks. So, like I mentioned, the technology and the threshold for innovation has passed the economic curve, where now it totally makes sense to do this. And slowly it's going to phase out, where the internal combustion engine and oil becomes a thing of the past. So importance of electric vehicles. There's lots of important reasons, and I'm going to get into this over the deck, but basically the volatility of gas and oil in the world is a problem. You have to continuously mine for this and continuously find natural resources. And there's a limited capacity in the world. So not only are you fighting for scarce resources and trying to come up with these resources, but you have to move them, you have to refine them, and you have to get them to the end user. So it's a continuous consumption cycle. And I'll get into the circular economy of batteries and electric vehicles a little later, but basically gas would be done away with in this context. And electricity is cheaper than gas. And basically you can reduce your cost by about 50% with current electric prices per gallon per mile. And obviously electricity can be made from solar and wind and other renewable resources, which can be 100% carbon free and very, very clean for the environment. So they pollute less, even when using electricity from the grid. They pollute even more, virtually zero, when using solar and wind farms. And another thing is that they're very, very reliable because they have many, many fewer moving pieces than an internal combustion engine. I have a Chevy Volt, and I've gone 15,000 miles, and I haven't changed the oil once. And that's a hybrid vehicle, but basically a full electric vehicle, you never have to change the oil because there is no oil and there's no gasoline. And so they're cleaner, they're more reliable, they have less maintenance. And additionally, they're also very cheap, and they're getting cheaper by the minute. So the carbon footprint goes down, and thus the environmental impact and the greenhouse gas emissions goes down. So very, very compelling reasons to use electric vehicles. And we basically can get to a point where we aren't relying upon fossil fuels or gasoline or diesel. We don't need those supply chains, and we can get to the point where we could supply all of our energy from clean sources and convert our technology over to this. So getting into a couple types, there's hybrid electric vehicles, and then there's full electric vehicles. And it wasn't until recently where battery technology could enable a range that allowed a fully electric vehicle. So some of the early inventions were some form of internal combustion engine reservoir and a battery system that acted either in parallel or in series to produce a vehicle that could basically have the same range as a gasoline engine or a diesel engine, but basically still had some electric capability for a range of some sort. So like I mentioned, the Volt that I have, it is a hybrid system, meaning that basically it's a parallel hybrid system, which means that when the battery is fully used up, it'll go around 70 miles or so, 50 to 70 miles, depending upon driving conditions. Then the internal combustion engine kicks in, and the gasoline will power the vehicle for the remainder of the range until you recharge, until you get more gas. So that's one way to do it. Hybrid vehicles on the bottom there actually have charging and discharging and still use gasoline as a reservoir to provide backup range. But basically, it's a multi-parallel system. I'm sorry, series system that's a little bit different than the parallel hybrid system. So this is just kind of top rank, very simple versions of the cars. A hybrid electric vehicle has a battery in parallel with a combustion engine and a gas tank. You can get any number of ranges with this, but definitely the same range as the gasoline engine. And then you have plug-in hybrid electric or plug-in electric vehicles, which have a larger battery and a smaller gasoline engine or a parallel gasoline engine. And these are going to get more range on your battery than the hybrid electric vehicle, and they're going to go farther before the battery gets depleted. And then finally, on the far right here is a full electric vehicle. And depending upon the battery size in these vehicles, it's really going to determine the range for the car. So more batteries, more range. You're storing more energy so you can go farther. And also we'll get into a little bit about battery chemistries and why that's important, because battery chemistries have significantly improved. And what that means is that you can put more energy in a smaller, lightweight space than you could before, which means in cars, obviously, the lighter they are, the farther they can go, the less work you're doing. So really important phenomenon that's happening right now. So efficiency, right, is the hallmark of an electric vehicle. And in very simple terms, you know, there's 75% to 70% less energy consuming than an internal combustion engine. And at current prices for electric and gasoline, it's a 41% reduction in cost per mile relative to an internal combustion engine. So I just pulled the DOT pricing per gallon in New Jersey. It's $2.57. You know, a car that can go 20 miles is going to get, it is equivalent to 1.83 kilowatt hours per mile. And a kilowatt hour is just a unit of energy. It's an electrical term, but it's the same as, you know, a gallon of gasoline. So 1 gallon of gasoline has 36.6 kilowatt hours of energy. So when you do the math, you're using 1.83 kilowatt hours per mile. And that basically boils down to about $2.50 for your 20 miles. Now you look at the electric vehicle and you get 2 miles per kilowatt hour. So it's the actual inverse of that. And that's pretty typical. In different driving conditions, when it's cold, you're not getting as many miles, you're running your heat. There's certain things that affect your driving. And highway mileage uses more energy than city mileage. But basically, when you do that math and you multiply 20 miles times a half kilowatt hour per mile and multiply by 15 cents per kilowatt hour that you buy from your electric utility, that equates to about $1.50 for 20 miles. Now, I'm trying to keep this very simple, but the concept is that you're using less energy, significantly less energy, and you're also reducing your costs even at current prices. So when you look at the total cost of ownership for a vehicle, an electric vehicle, this is an important consideration, because a lot of people drive 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 miles a year, and gasoline prices and gas expenses are a portion of the total cost of ownership. So, and then you can also factor in maintenance savings where you don't have the oil changes, you don't have to fix things as often. There's fewer moving parts. So all of these things factor into the efficiency and what you're actually saving with one of these models. So this is just a more technical chart on the wheel-to-wheel efficiency, which is basically how efficient is the car at converting mechanical energy, electrical energy, and mechanical energy back and forth. And one of the ways that hybrid electric vehicles and electric vehicles get so efficient is by using what's called regenerative braking. And the interesting thing about this is that when you're using electric vehicles, you're typically using an electric motor to drive each one of the wheels. And regenerative braking is used to basically run the motor in reverse when you're braking and recapturing some of the momentum that you did when you were running it forward. So you can think about it, you're speeding up your car, the electric motor is running one way, you're getting more and more momentum. And momentum is a buildup of energy, right? It's potential, it's kinetic energy. And then when you slow down, the electric motor is running in reverse and acting like a charger for your battery. So it's recapturing some of that kinetic energy and putting it back into the battery so you can use it for later. And that's really important because it's a conservation measure where you can take a lot of what otherwise would have been wasted and turn it back into usable energy for your battery over time. And this is one of the reasons why driving in the city is actually more efficient than driving on the highway, because you're recapturing a lot of that regenerative energy over time. And sometimes this also reduces the wear and tear on your brakes. There's less heat induced by the friction, and overall it just adds to this efficiency that you're getting from the vehicle.
Hey, Matt,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Can you mute Robert? You're the host.
Yes. Thank you. It's
We're picking up background noise. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep, there we go. All right. So wanted to talk a little bit about batteries because this is really the key to electric vehicles and why it's become so financially feasible and also economically feasible in today's day and age. And really at the heart of that is the battery technology. Like I mentioned, lead acid batteries used to be pretty much one of the only ways that you could store electrical energy for a good period of time. And now, this is a really interesting chart I'm showing up in the upper right-hand corner, which is the power density of the battery versus the watt hours per liter of electrolyte. And you can see that lead acid is pretty low in terms, so it's, what that means is it's heavy and it doesn't store a lot of energy. And then as you get up to the right, you're looking at all these different chemistries and battery technology. And the higher up into the right hand category means that you're storing more energy and the battery is actually lighter and lighter and lighter. So the power density is tighter for those batteries. Lithium ion batteries, for example, are extremely energy efficient and lighter than lead acid batteries by a significant margin. And there's more and more battery technologies becoming available and getting cheaper and cheaper to produce. So one of the big costs of an electric vehicle is the battery, and also the range is determined by the battery. So the technology advancement here that comes with the battery is critical to where we are in the EV revolution and where we are with the transition here. And we're also kind of in the middle of a paradigm because there's a lot of technologies out there. There's a lot of money that needs to get poured into research and development. And basically we're sifting through some of the new and innovative technologies, but eventually a standard will develop and we'll get to, you know, a pretty standardized type of technology in the future. But lithium sulfur batteries, for example, are even more have even higher power density than lithium ion batteries. And then this chart down here in the left shows you the range. So you can see, 2012, you basically had a range of 70 to 80 miles for a plug-in vehicle, a hybrid vehicle. Tesla has very good range on their vehicles, but more recently, you're getting really good range as the technology gets better and the technology gets lighter and cheaper to produce. So, we're seeing developments where you could go 500 miles with an electric vehicle. And it's going to get better and better as more things become efficient into the future. But the battery is the core. And if you're following electric vehicles, you should also follow battery technology, because that really is the important component in the vehicles. And then there's also an interesting thing that's happening right now with just electric motors in general. So electric motors are getting more and more efficient as well, which means you're able to convert energy from mechanical to electrical back and forth in a more efficient way and save energy on that as well. So motors, all the electrical components, the battery, it's all getting better and better and better. And that's one of the reasons why electric vehicles are really coming of age right now. So, a question and a comment that always comes up about the electric vehicle is like the chicken and the egg problem, the charger, right? And the charging network. If you drive 5 miles or 10 miles in our area, you're going to see 5 or 6 gas stations, right? So the infrastructure is very developed for gas stations throughout the United States. It's a very organized and complex supply chain as well, because you're taking a natural resource from someplace, importing it through a pipeline or a ship or a oil refinery into a oil boat to a refinery, turning it into whatever you're using, gasoline or diesel. Then you're moving that from one place to the next to get it to the gasoline station. So similarly, for the infrastructure on gasoline, all of the infrastructure for electric vehicles has to transition and evolve and get installed as well. So you're seeing a massive increase in EV charging stations across the highway network in the United States. And this is going to take time, it's going to take effort, and it's going to take resources and investment. But the red dots there are the Tesla supercharging stations, and the gray ones are new ones. So, basically this is kind of like building railroads back in the 1800s, where you have to build out all this infrastructure to support the cars as they drive through and they need charging. But for the majority of the time, most people don't drive across the country very often. So, your charging needs are pretty simple from a local standpoint. And that's why charging at your house in the lower right-hand corner is definitely an option. Last year I used 16 gallons of gasoline for the entire year for 2 cars. And, COVID had an impact there because we were driving less, but basically, all of the local driving we did with 2 hybrid vehicles was on electric, on our batteries. So, and in terms of charging, home charging is you have a lot of different options. The interesting thing is that it doesn't really require any investment, because you can use 120 volts, and that's considered a level 1 charger. So that's just your regular plug for your outlet. I charged both my cars with a 120 volt for a long time. It takes longer. It took me about 12 hours or so to charge my car. So I would plug it in overnight and then it'd be ready to go, and I had my range in the morning. But more recently, a level 2 charger, you're using 240 volts. So you need an electrician to install this, and you're basically reducing the charge time to 50 or 75% from what it was before. And then you get into some really cool things for commercial and supercharging stations, where you're getting into DC fast chargers in the 13.6 volt range, or 13,600 volt range, 480 volt superchargers. And these things just push massive amounts of electricity through the circuit to recharge things. Just to give you an example, my my Chevy Volt can store 16 kilowatt hours of energy. The Tesla semi truck, the battery is going to store somewhere from 800 to 1,000 kilowatt hours of energy, and it will go about 500 miles. And I'm just giving you an example of the massive amounts of energy that's required to take something like that across the country. So you also need to charge it very, very quickly. And the infrastructure to do that is all part of the solution here for transforming our entire network. But, you know, you don't need as much infrastructure because you can also charge your car at home or at work or at the grocery store or wherever the chargers are set up. So it really requires a lot less than what you see with the gas stations that we have now. But you know, you can see down in the right-hand corner, Electrify America is a company that's trying to do the same thing. There's all kinds of apps and websites that you can go to figure out where you can charge. And Adit is someone on our team who basically has like figured out how to go up to Canada and back on a full electric vehicle. And really, you know, when you plan it out, you can do anything that you want to with the same technology. So as I was mentioning, range is a really critical consideration for the electric EV revolution. And why is that important? People are used to hopping in their car, filling up their tank, and then going to Boston or going to Washington or, you know, driving 300 miles or something on a full tank. Now, all cars are different, but basically that's kind of the, you know, rough range where people feel comfortable is a full gas tank to get you someplace. And at this point, you know, electric vehicles are getting to the point where 250-mile range or more is just kind of standard. And to put that in perspective, right here in Parsippany, 250 miles will take you to Boston or Washington, D.C. It'll take you up to Albany. It'll take you over to Pennsylvania. You know, this large circle here is basically the radius of that. So anywhere you really want to go, you can go. And then you stop over some of these supercharging stations, you can charge up to 80% capacity in 30 to 40 minutes. So you get a bite to eat, you know, you stop at a pit stop, you charge up, and then you can go another 250 miles. So it's getting to the point where range anxiety is what it's called, where, you know, the considerations are and the reasons why you wouldn't do this are getting less and less and less, not to mention all the economics that we talked about before. So Parsippany, you know, I want to highlight this, that, you know, part of what we're up to with the Green Team is to highlight the fact that Parsippany is beautifully located on the East Coast. Not only are we at the intersection of major highways, but we're also sort of right in the middle of Boston and Washington, D.C. New York is right here. Anything going west has to come through Parsippany for the most part on Interstate 80. So anything going west has to go down 287 to get on 78 to go west. So, you know, the opportunity for our town is really to become an EV hub for the entire East Coast and the Northeast here. So, you know, integrating with Department of Transportation and other towns and figuring out how to get commercial properties to think about this more is going to drive more and more charging stations in our town and basically enable more and more electric vehicles to not only participate locally from a citizen standpoint, but also all the cars driving through our town can stop and take a pit stop in Parsippany and, you know, see the town and go to the parks and go to the stores. And not to mention, they're going to be emitting less carbon as they drive through our town and use our air, you know, so there's, you know, we're in a really exciting time for electric vehicles, and we're also in a really exciting location as this whole thing transitions and as this whole thing develops. So it's one of the things we're up to is figuring out how to make EVs the center of the town and how to make this a technology that everyone uses and everyone that drives through our town uses. So the opportunity into the future, I wanted to highlight this because just like building out all the gasoline and the pipelines and the refineries and stuff, this is going to take technology, public and private investment, and also finance, market, policy, and technology. So all these things are converging at this point, and support from local government, national government, state governments, market incentives, and the financial aspects of this technology, as well as policy and improved research and development. They basically make this market condition that we see right now proliferate and expand at an even faster rate. And that's really where we are right now. They call this the solar plus decade, because not only are we going to see renewable energy expand, but we're also going to see technologies like charging infrastructure and EVs and, you know, all of the things that come along with this expanding into the future as well. So really exciting time, as I mentioned. And then, you know, one of the last things that I want to describe here is, you know, another consideration is that, you know, batteries are made from something. The lithium is usually taken from a mine or a, you know, evaporative lithium pool in South America or some other place, and it's refined from rocks. You know, so you're to get the raw materials and the material that to make the lithium battery or whatever battery technologies, you still have to go and find resources. But what's different about an electric vehicle and a battery is that they're developing all these innovative ways where you can take that battery and recycle it, shred it, break it down, use processes to filter out all the heavy metals, the precious metals, the materials, the wastes, and reuse all of that material again in a circular economy. So you can't really do that with oil. You can't do that with carbon dioxide that you burn and expel into the air. It's done. It's over. So, you know, the future of electric vehicles, and as this expands and proliferates as well, is making sure that the waste stream gets put back into the economy, and you don't need to mine for as much. You don't need to go find resources as much. And basically you can continuously reuse the same materials over and over again. And that's what really becomes sustainable, is not going and finding new things, but reusing what you have and really sustaining your current lifestyle and your machines and everything that you need without having to go and do anything else. So that's also an advantage of electric vehicles, is that, you know, you really can get to the point where you don't need anything else, and potentially just need the sun or the wind to power your electric vehicles and have a completely carbon-free solution. So that's the end of the presentation. I wanted to leave some time for questions at the end. I wasn't watching the chat, but yeah, any questions, thoughts, questions?
Hello. So
Hi.
we were interested in purchasing electric vehicles. So this is a great opportunity to ask what types of vehicles do you recommend, you know, that are longer lasting in electric and more durable,
and parts.
and the parts that, you know, like if you get, like we heard that Tesla, like if you get into an accident, it would be hard to find parts to fix the vehicle,
Or even to repair a Tesla
or to
vehicle
repair
has
it.
been very hard
Yeah.
to find parts for. You practically have to find a salvaged Tesla vehicle and steal the parts from it to repair yours.
So which one?
Well, I can't really recommend a specific brand. I mean, I think that's something that we can talk about offline, but in this specific presentation, you know, I have good ideas about what I would buy, but I don't think it's my place to really recommend anything.
Okay.
I have another question. The fast charging. So like I play with RC cars. So my RC cars are not nitros, they're electric. And I know when you overcharge these batteries, the cells get burnt out. Does that apply to EV cars?
Yeah, so there's something called, you know, you don't always want to keep your battery at 100% charge. 80% is kind of an ideal range. And then obviously you don't want your battery to get below a certain point either, when it can potentially be unusable or destroyed.
Right.
So you know, it's called a memory of the battery basically, and all different chemistries have different context around the memory, but essentially, you know, keeping it at an 80% or 90% charge and then depleting it down to 40 to 30% or so is kind of a good range for operating and maintaining the life of the battery as long as you can. Now, electric vehicles already have the bottom built in. So a car manufacturer is not going to let you go to the point where you don't have a battery anymore. So when it tells you you're out of range, you probably still have a little bit left, but you just can't go because it's going to damage the battery anymore.
Got it.
So
Thank
I
you.
would think that the issue about parts and things, if I understand it, Tesla does not use dealers, right? So if you buy from a company that has dealers, then that should be helpful in getting parts. Just like today, if you bring your car back to a dealer, they're going to have parts to be, you know, to fix it. But, you know, I don't know. Is Tesla? Are there Tesla dealerships?
There are Tesla dealership, but there's a lot of horror stories about Teslas. So like you buy a brand new Tesla, obviously they're gonna give you the 100% service satisfaction guarantee that they could provide. But once your warranty expires, they just kind of let you go. And then you're kind of fending off, you know, for yourself, trying to find these parts for your Tesla vehicles. So there's like, I watch a whole bunch of YouTube videos of electric vehicles, and I try to search which is the best vehicle, long range. Should I get the hybrid? I mean, there's pros and cons to everything. But one of them was about parts. See, I'm a DIY, so I kind of like fix everything. So when it comes to vehicles, I like to know that I am accessible to parts. And if I can't get parts, there's no point in me purchasing a vehicle that I can't find parts.
I just want to say a Tesla is not a Honda.
Right.
You can find parts for everything. Remember, Tesla's from the ground up. Most of their parts are, you know, in-house things. So getting parts like that is difficult. And I actually want to mention something about the battery. A lot of these newer cars, they have smart batteries. So they know how much to charge. So if you notice, if you're for example, if you have an iPhone, or actually my iPhone does that, you plug it in the nighttime, you might get a notification says your battery is charging, and it'll get 100% about an hour before you wake up. So it saves your battery.
Yeah, it has a built-in capacitor inside of it. So once it hits its charge, it stops.
Right. Matthew, can you stop sharing your screen? So we can, beautiful, thank you very much.